Chapter 2 First Encounters. It was an amazing time for us, as this was the first time that we had met peaceably with any of the outside nations. 3 of the group were elected to go meet this Abram. However, just as they were about to leave, the censors went crazy. We quickly contacted them and told them to observe. All they saw, though, were 3 figures walking away into the distance. Then the censors went quiet. We decided to continue with the contact, and the selected 3 approached a woman at a well. "Hello," one of them tried. He had been studying their language before he was exiled. "Peace be on you, sir," the woman replied, bowing her head slightly and looking away. "Please, my name is Salzar, and these are my companions, Roshef and Dolomer. Please, what is your name?"
"If it pleases thee, my lord, I am Hagar, but a humble servant."
"We are looking for the one that they call Abram. Do you know such a man?"
"I do. It is my master you seek. Although he is no longer called Abram, he goes by Abraham now."
"I apologize for my lack of knowledge. May we talk with him?"
"I shall take you to him, my lords. Follow me."
She led them up to the tent that was on top of a mound. Just outside sat a man with a long grey beard, looking out upon all the people. Behind him, inside the tent, sat an elderly woman, busily weaving.
"Peace be unto you, my master. These men wish to speak with you."
"Ah, it is a day for visitors, then. I have just entertained 3 others, you see. Hagar, please fetch these men some water for their feet and food for their stomach. This desert heat is enough for a man to gain a lion's hunger. Friends, please be seated. How may I help you?" "Great Abraham, thank you for your kindness. We have travelled far to meet with you." "Ah, friend, do not call me great, but instead blessed, for all I have is in thanks not to myself, but to God, who has gifted it unto me." "Indeed. Who is this God of whom you speak?" "He is the Father of all, the Ancient of Days. He is that he is." I see. I see that you do not. You have come here to find out more about power, yes?" The scientists here expressed great surprise at his knowledge of their true purpose. He could not have known. They had never spoken to anyone outside of their group about their mission. "Ah, yes. I too once longed for power and riches, and yet here I am with more riches and power than any king around, and with no child to share them with." "Excuse me, Lord, but does not Abraham mean the father of many?" asked the one who had been studying the language. "That is the name my God has given me. It is a sign of his promise to make me the father of many nations." "Your God gave you this name? You spoke with him? May we meet with him?" "If it is your wish, I am sure he will reveal himself to you in time." "You are old, though, and your wife, though beautiful, is aged. How will you produce a child?" 3 men came to me before you and reaffirmed God's promise. Nothing is impossible to God, my friends. If he wishes me to have a child, then I shall, no matter what appearances may be. The scientists stayed and talked with Abraham late into the night. After, they went back to the group and returned to Abraham the next morning, along with all the others of the exiles. One by one, they removed their necklaces and earrings, their only way of communicating with us, and crushed them under their feet. The scientists on this side could not believe it. They tried for days to send a signal through, hoping that one of them had left their comms open. They eventually got through. The youngest one had left on 1 earring, and he responded to tell all that I have just told thee, before doing what the others had done and destroying the earring. Why they did it, we don't know. They didn't broadcast the conversation that was held between them and Abraham. We all sat in silence for a while, our minds absorbing the story that I had just told. Eventually Matthias spoke up. "This is what we have been studying, and now we believe that an event greater than any that has happened before this has occurred. I would request the Emperor's permission to be part of a dispatch team to scout out the source of this energy and to put to rest once and for all this mystery." "No, Your Majesty." "I said no." We need you on board at this time. We cannot delay the launch. If you went now, we would have to leave you behind, and I cannot risk this on some whim. I don't believe there is a God. Talk of gods is what led us into depravity before. Besides, I don't want any knowledge of a God who would allow the world to carry on as it does anyway. It's chasing after rainbows anyway, said Gaius. An entirely pointless exercise. Your Majesty, please reconsider if the— No! Am I no longer emperor that I must be questioned such? None of you is to breathe a word of this. It goes no further than this room. Am I understood? I had never seen him so angry. Clearly, there was something more going on inside him than just pig-headed stubbornness. Generals, Professor, thank you for your time. You are dismissed. Maximus, a word in private, if you will. I nodded my head. The other three got up and went to the door, and after bowing, solemnly exited. It was silent for a long while, and I could see the fire turning over in Nartinia's eyes. His fingers drummed on the chair's arms, and he took several deep breaths. Well, was I convincing, Maximus, my Kurlan? He asked, the flames turning into mischievous glimmers. I was shocked. To call someone my Kurlan in the Atlanteans' culture was the ultimate form of respect. For the Emperor to say that to a vizier was unheard of. You certainly looked angrier than I've ever seen you before, if that's what you mean. His laugh resounded in the room. All those lessons at the Drama Academy, and I still overplay my part. Your Majesty, forgive me if I'm being silly, but I am a bit confused. Of course you are, Maximus. I know you can't lie to save your life, so I couldn't let you in. Did you think I knew nothing of the direction of Matthias and your studies? You mean you had us watched? Of course. It's my job, isn't it? To secure the safety of all my people. But if you knew, then why did you refuse Matthias's request? My friend, if I had allowed Matthias to go, no one would have believed him. Although he is a general and would have had my support, he has no existence in the public. No one knows he exists except those of us he works with. It may sound harsh, and the people owe much to his existence, which they so casually disregard. If it weren't for him, we'd still be back in the amalgamation age. So you're going to send someone then? Of course. Or have you forgotten? I was a scientist before I became emperor. Who then, if not Matthias? Who else knows enough about the device? For the world's most intelligent man, you sure have taken a long time to figure this out. You, Kurlan, along with Augustus, shall set off for Jerusalem as soon as we have docked above the stone circle. Me? But I... No, Maximus, do not refuse. I shall speak to Matthias in private and explain to him the situation. He will no doubt agree to my choice. Now, you have a part to play. The reason for this little charade was to get Augustus's agreement on going. You need to leave this room with your head held low as a defeated man. Turn to Augustus and tell him that you got me to agree to a dispatch team, but only on the condition that it comprised of the two of you, and tell him to come and speak with me. If he has any hesitation, I will come up with some way to disregard it. The people love Augustus, and he is loyal to me. Also, it is widely known that you two don't exactly see eye to eye. Wait, scratch that. You would sooner see sword to sword. So if you both agree to the findings, there can be no doubt as to their validity. When did you become so brilliant, Nartinia? Oh, sometime between your keeping me up to date with all Snorget's lessons as kids and our 1000 game of Tessana, which reminds me, we still haven't finished, and I believe it was my move. I sat writing at my desk, the light from the lamp turned down low. I had never been a fan of bright lights. My mind spun with the thoughts of what was going to happen tomorrow. Well, tomorrow for us Atlanteans, in the next 34 years for the rest of the world. You see, while the ship docked at the stone circle, we would begin to rotate around the circle. Eventually, the ship would begin to reach incredible speeds, so that time dilation would occur. And when that would happen, What would seem like a day to us would be 34 years to everyone on Earth. We would be protected from the incredible forces by Matthias's field generator. However, the world would have changed when we returned to normal speed. I heard a soft hoot. Although it was not really a hoot, it sounded more like someone was saying the word hoot more than the actual sound of a hoot. I smiled and reached up to stroke the soft feathers of my Kutora. His name was Slenia, and he very closely resembled an owl. The main visible difference was a single long red feather flowing down from the top of his head. Other subtle things were different, but my eyes, at least, were always drawn to that feather. The Kutora were the only ones to remain on our side during the rebellion. When the science of alteration was still new, we changed animals into what we considered to be pleasing shapes and kinds. Some even had their intelligence brought to a level similar to ours. They were all incredibly loyal, though, more so than any human I know, and they would follow their owner to the grave if he or she died, and would not allow any damage to come to him or her as long as they were near. In a strange way, we needed the Kutora. Often, when we were first rebuilding the empire after the rebellion, we had used them as a model for our own behaviors. Slenia hooted again, this time making it sound almost like a purr. I went back to my writing. How would the world have changed by the time we charged the ship? Surely an event that could trigger such massive energies would have had to have some impact on the planet. My little yellow robotic spheres would be monitoring the Earth while I was away, but what information would they contain once we returned? It would be Augustus's and my duty to ascertain the truth behind it all once we left. Perhaps the best way would be to seek out the people who had been around at this event. I felt a presence behind me, and long, silky black hair fell on either side of my face. Gently a kiss was placed on my forehead. I turned around. "Nidara," I said. "It's late, Maximus. Why don't you come to bed?" "There is so much to think of, Nidara. I don't know if I could fall asleep." "Leave the thoughts of tomorrow for tomorrow, my husband. Come. Liarin is already asleep, and you'll need your strength for tomorrow." I took her hand and let her lead me to the bed. It was morning. It came after a night of dream-filled sleep. I turned over to look at my wife. What had I done to deserve such a woman? She was the perfect match for me, and I could not have asked for a more caring wife. Her long hair was scattered across the pillows, and her gentle breathing made her lips pout in a most attractive way. I kissed the lips, softly. She stirred, a smile forming on her face. "Morning, Maximus," she said, lifting her hand to my face. "Morning, my heart." I relished calling her that, knowing that I was hers and she was mine. I lifted my head off the pillow, and we both changed and walked to the kitchen. From down the hall came the soft patter of footsteps, and little Liarin jumped into my arms. "Daddy, Daddy!" he said excitedly. "Good morning, my little tiger, and how are you today?" I asked, giving him a tight hug. We had had Liarin late, and he was the joy of our souls. "I'm good. Daddy, what's for breakfast?" he asked, jumping back down and pulling my hand to lead me to the kitchen. "It's Mommy's turn to cook this morning, so why don't you ask her?" I said, giving a sly smile to my wife. "Well, Mommy, please tell me," he inquired. "Let's see. I do believe it is our little one's favorite this morning." A smile spread across her face, and he started to jump out of joy. The rest of the morning went by swiftly, all of us enjoying each other's company, and soon we felt a shudder through the walls, along with hearing the announcement that we had re-entered normal time. It was time for me to leave for the outside. We stood outside the ship. Augustus had said his goodbyes inside, but my family followed me out. "Must you go, my husband?" Nidara's hand drifted to my side, almost to keep me there. "It is perhaps the most important thing I will ever do, Nidara. I won't be more than a month." "Even a day without you is more than eternity for me, my love. However, if this is as important as you say, I will wish you a safe journey. And I will think about you every moment, my dear. And I will dream of you every second, my love." I kissed her softly. "Yuck!" said Liarin. We both smiled. "And you, young man," I said, taking him into my arms, "you look after your mom while I'm gone, okay?"
Yes, Dad, I love you.
I love you too, my son, very much. We snuggled for a while. Come, Maximus, we must be off, called Augustus from the small teardrop-shaped craft that would take us to the rendezvous with my reconnaissance droids, or buzzballs as I like to call them. I climbed into the circular opening with one last smile and a wave for the family I was leaving behind. I watched the world fly by below me, Slinia hooting occasionally to point out something of interest in the landscape below. Hardly a word passed between Augustus and I was beginning to despair of the mission's success if we could not get along. I should not have worried, though, as he was the first to speak up. Maximus, I have been hard on you.
August, he held up his hand.
No, let me finish. I have always been jealous of you, Maximus. You are the person I have admired most in my life, and as such, you were the person I was always striving to be. Somewhere along the way, when I realized I could never be who you are, it became resentment. I started hating you and all that you were, and it was unfair. I realized when Nartinia spoke to me about it yesterday, and I apologize. Now, don't try to sugarcoat it, Maximus. It is the truth I have just spoken. A hard truth. I expect you to respect that.
I felt my throat close up, but I put my hand forward and he grasped it firmly in return. The console in front of the ship started beeping and we both rushed forward towards the screen. There were several small dots in the map and we were swiftly closing in on them.
"Prrrt," said Selenia.
Yes, I replied. We are nearing the buzzballs.
Can you really understand what that bird says, Maximus?
I won't claim to understand the exact syntax, however the general meaning is clear. Have you ever thought of raising a Qutora?
I did once, but my work in the council kept me from committing. I may just do so if all goes well on our arrival at the new planet.
It is very rewarding. I consider Selenia as one of my closest friends.
At this, Selenia hooted irritably in my ear.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm embarrassing you, I said, scratching his head.
We're here, Augustus announced.
There appeared in the side of the ship a long panel that slid back, and into it flew several yellow metallic spheres. They slotted into the round hollows in the floor that had appeared when the panel had slid back. Suddenly, all around us appeared images and sound clips. I pressed a button, and there was silence and empty space once more.
Sorry, I said to Augustus. They are Burton designed, and you know how he likes putting personality into his droids. These are a bit over-eager. Over-eager? Neshne, Maximus, they almost deafened me.
Well, we better get to study the information, Augustus. We've got 34 years of history to catch up on. We spent the next several days combing through the information from the buzzballs. We got on surprisingly well. Since Augustus's confession, we had become fast friends and the days flew by. We finally came to the conclusion, though, that we would have to find our answers in Rome, in the very city of Rome itself. It was the work of a few minutes to fly the ship to Rome and land on a secluded side of a hill outside the city. The real trial would be to get access to the man we needed to speak to. His name was Paul of Tarsus, a follower of the man the Romans had crucified, who was being held captive in a cell in the prisons. It was amazing how fast the word of this man and his earthly deeds had spread. As part of our research, Matthias and I had studied various religious figures in our time, but the rate that this man's philosophies and doctrines had spread across the world was simply astounding. Augustus and I had donned the clothing suitable for the city, rich and well-made enough to not be disregarded, yet simple enough not to arouse comment. We walked down the paved walkways and crossed the streets using the raised stone blocks on the streets, useful for not getting your sandals covered in horse droppings covering the busy streets. Interesting aromas and tantalizing sights met our every turn. If we did not have such serious business, I would have loved to explore the city. Although we tried our best not to stand out, we were met with suspicious looks as we passed. I worried over this for a while until I noticed that everyone was looking at each other in the same way. I turned to Augustus, still walking. "It looks as if the city is in a state of unrest," I said. "It's the Emperor. He was a great man once, negotiated great peace treaties, conquered new land, improved the cultural side of our great city. But lately he's changed. My name is Servius Julius Marinus. I own the inn up the road a bit. Will you two be staying in Rome a while?" I bristled. I had not been expecting anyone to be standing so close as to overhear, and I would not make that mistake again. "A few days at the most," I answered. Ah, you'll be needing a place to stay then. I've got the finest inn in the city, right across from the baths. I'm sure such gentlemen as yourselves would look for only for the finest.
We might as well, Maximus. We do need a place to stay, came Augustus's deep voice. All right, lead us to your establishment, my good man, I said. He led us through the streets to a tall building out opposite a bathhouse, which the Romans seemed so fond of. It was not too bad looking, really, as far as the possible accommodations in Rome went. We were led to a room which we would share, and left with a bow and promises of a safe night. It seemed as if the city really was in some trouble, if that was the sort of thing an innkeeper told his guests. We settled in, unpacked, and after a while in the common room, we fell to talking of how we could gain audience with Paul. It would be tricky if he was currently being held prisoner by no less than the emperor himself. Or so we found out by some carefully placed questions in the common room. We retired back to the room and hadn't been there longer than 5 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I went to open it, but found no one there. Looking around, my eye caught on a piece of parchment on the floor with writing, with a flowing hand upon it. Dear sirs, the Grey Market stall is the place to be, where all the fish gather you see. How great an honour for my eyes to meet the sun's full rays in defeat. A cage's entrance to be explored, a simple man to be adored. But what is that about? Asked Augustus when I had finished reading it. After a moment more studying the note, I replied, This fellow seems to want to meet us at the market after the noon, although what he means by where the fish meet I cannot understand. Also, he claims to be able to take us to Paul by the looks of it. It seems that our questioning was not quite as covert as we had hoped. That makes twice our subterfuge has been laid aside in one day. So much for us being the best for the mission. The mission is not over yet, my friend. Let us get some sleep. Tomorrow we've got some shopping to do.